wanted to welcome you all and thank you all for being here. And this is what Dan wanted, and he told us what he wanted, and this is what Dan wanted and where he wanted his funeral to be. And I'm so happy that you all could be here, and I welcome you to our home. And it's a special place for Dan, where he loved to be, on the water and in this place. And I know that all of you have been so generous to me and to Dan and to our family. Just recently, I read this poem, and that was it's titled "Wind Today," and it's by an unknown author, but it really fits my feelings about Dan and him. So I'm just going to read it, and I think it's perfect for him and for my future with him. I heard your voice in the wind today, and I turned to see your face. The warmth of the wind caressed me as I stood silently in place. I felt your touch in the sun today. As its warmth filled the sky, I closed my eyes for your embrace, and my spirit soared high. I saw your eyes in the window pane as I watched the falling rain. It seemed as each raindrop fell, it quietly said your name. I held you close in my heart today. It made me feel complete. You may have died, but you are not gone. You will always be a part of me, as long as the sun shines, the wind blows, the rain falls. You will live on inside of me forever. The wind was really important to Dan because at heart he was a sailor, and he looked forward to sailing and being in the sun and the wind. And this is a perfect day and a perfect place. Thank you all.
We're going to sing Shall We Gather at the River all together, number 29. We'll sing all five verses. That's all sing. Shall we gather at the river, where rising sea hath drawn, with its crystal tide forever, flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river, gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. On the margin of the river, watching out the children's rain, we will walk and worship ever on the happy golden King. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river, gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Ere we reach the shining river, lay we every burden down. Grace our spirit will deliver and provide a robe and crown. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river, gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the silver river, soon our pilgrimage will cease, soon our happy hearts will quiver with a melody of peace. Yes, beautiful river, gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. At the smiling of the river, mirror of the Savior's face, saints who death will never sever, lift their songs of saving grace. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Dick Garner, and it's an honor for me to be here today to honor my brother and his family. Actually, some people my age say they don't remember what they had for breakfast, but I can actually remember October the 7th, 1947. I was told that my mom was going to have a baby, and you have to picture this setting with me. This is a farm in southern Ohio, and it's not a scenic view like we're all enjoying today. It was kind of a dirt farm, they called it. But at the end of this farm, my grandpa would give Dad a house or a lot, and he built a little house on it. So my sister and I, she's 5 years old and I'm 3 years old, and we're told to go up and sit on the side of a hill on the farm and look at our house where a stork was going to be flying in, and we were going to have a baby. Now back then you didn't know if it was going to be a girl or boy, you know, so we're up there. And pretty soon, my grandma comes and gets us and brings us down there. Now, nobody ever told us why we never saw the stork. But anyway, I had a bouncing baby brother. Now, the funny part about it was in this little house we lived in, there was a gravel road across from it, and there was this red shed. And Dad had put on it, his name was Merwin Etzel. Nobody could remember that. They called him Jack, but he had M.E. Garner dairy. He had one cow. So when I was born, he went out there with a can of white paint and put an S on the end of it, or a son on the end of it. So now it was M.E. Garner and Son Dairy. So the day Dan was born, he went out there with that bucket of paint and he put an S on the end of Son. So Dan immediately became part owner in a dairy, a one cow dairy. So this was how our life started. Well, we never had a lot of money, and so we finally moved up further north, just north of Columbus, Ohio. And there we moved in a real nice home. It was on a place called Pigtail Alley. There were 7 of us living in a 2-bedroom house. We did have electricity, but if you wanted to go to the bathroom, it was out back, but not quite as far as the end of the deck, but you get the picture. We didn't have running water in the house, but we were raised in this house. And the thing I remember about it, in 1952, we got a television. Now for us, that was uptown. Back then, for some of you old enough to remember, you had the old rabbit ears on the top of it, and every channel, all 3 of them, looked like it was snowing. But on Saturday evening, Dan and I and my other brother that's here, Don, our favorite program was Gunsmoke. Well, Mom and Dad's favorite program was Lawrence Welk. So our mom was a real disciplinarian, and she said if the kids didn't have their bath, we had the old Gospel Advocate booklets. We had to do our homework before our class on Sunday morning. We had to have our bath, our workbooks filled out, and our shoes polished, or we couldn't watch Gunsmoke. Now there were 5 kids, so you can guess of the 5 of us, usually one of us wouldn't have something done. So guess how many times we got to watch Gunsmoke? Very few. They always watched Lawrence Welk, which I thought was a stupid show. Anyway, so then we finally moved into another house that had an indoor bathroom, and this was really a nice place. And by then, we had not only me, Dick, we had Dan, we had Don, we had a dog named Duke, and we had our first granddaughter named Deborah. The joke was we knew Mom had an 8th grade education, but Dad claimed he had a 12th grade education. But apparently they only got through the D's. And so everything with Dad, Dick, Dan, Don, Duke, and Deborah was D's. So Dan meets this young lady, beautiful young lady, and he tells Dad one day, he said, Dad, I think I'm in love. Dad said, who with? He said, Jeannie. He said, Jeannie who? He said, Jeannie Dray, Dad. That's D-R-A-Y. He said, oh, that'll be great. And now we had another one, and it was great. And Dan married the love of his life, and just a beautiful wife that he had, and has been with him, as you all know, right through the end. Well, after college, I went to ATF, became a special agent, and really enjoyed the job a lot. And 3 years later, Dan went the academic route, and as you know, he got his doctorate degree, and he was always just brilliant in his studies. And if you're a special agent, one of the toughest things you have is getting somebody that's a forensic chemist or scientist to look at your evidence, because you've got 2,000 agents nationwide. We had a regional lab in Atlanta, one in San Francisco. Our headquarters lab was in D.C. Well, Dan became the chief of the forensic science branch, our chemical branch. Well, when he came on, people said, who is Dan Garner? And they would say, well, that's Dick Gardner's brother. In about 3 years, it was, who is Dick Garner? Well, that's Dan Garner's brother, because Dr. Garner stole their heart, and Dan was a great scientist and just did a wonderful job in supporting the special agents in the field. A brilliant guy, and had a great career. So again, just a little bit of background about our family and my brother Dan. But in the last several months, and you all have witnessed this, they have not only loved moving here, but the friendship the church has gave them here, the friendship of neighbors, we have been amazed. But also, not to my surprise, but how Jeannie and the family just really devoted all of their time to serving Dan. And to me, I think no matter all the accolades Dan had, all the honors he received, which were well deserved, I think the thing that I hope stands out to not only me, but to the children and grandchildren, is how this servant attitude permeated during his last days. And so it's an honor for me to be here, and if you would, let's just bow for a word of prayer. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the beauty of it. We thank you for being able to celebrate Dan and his life. And God, I also hold up at this time Jeannie and the whole family, and how they have just devoted so much time to help Dan during his illness. And we know he's in a much better place now. And so I just thank you for all of his friends, some that are gathered here today and others that were not able to make it, his family. And just bless our day and bless our time together. And we ask all this in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
I'd like to begin with a reading from one of the Psalms of, actually a psalm that's ascribed to Moses. Psalm 90, verses 1 through 6. Lord, you've been our dwelling place in all generations, before the mountains were born, for you gave birth to the earth and the world. Even from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn man back into dust, and say, return, O children of men, for 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it passes by, or as a watch in the night. You've swept them away like a flood. They fall asleep. In the morning they're like grass which sprouts anew. In the morning it flourishes and sprouts, and toward evening it fades and withers away. For all our days have declined in your fury. We have finished our years like a sigh. As for the days of our life, they contain 70 years, or if due to strength, 80 years. Yet their pride is but labor and sorrow. For soon it is gone, and we fly away. Who understands the power of your anger and your fury according to the fear that is due you? So teach us to number our days, that we will present to you a heart of wisdom. It's been a pleasure to get to meet Dan and Jeannie and to enjoy Dan's presence at church. He's been very kind to me, and we fished together one time. We hope to do it a lot more. He actually took sick the day that Raymond, Linda's husband Raymond, he's having surgery Tuesday, but unable to be here. But Raymond and I took Dan's fishing one day, and it was then that he found that he had passed some blood when he went to the bathroom. But Dan was always very kind. He was generous, and we've been back here on this back porch. The church has come here, and we've also, I need to speak up, we also have enjoyed fellowship with him out here in this beautiful setting as well. And I realize that, this is very difficult for this family. Having got the pleasure over the past few weeks to get to know Dan's children and his grandchildren, his family that, as Dick just said, has just been so dedicated, so devoted to their father, to their grandfather, Jacob, that has been here living in the house for a couple of months now, helping out, and have been a great help to your grandmother and to your grandfather. I'm just so impressed as well with the family love. I enjoyed yesterday seeing the video and getting to kind of fill in the gaps, because we just met Dan a few years ago, and it seems like it's been such a short period of time. And I hear of his accomplishments. You could not get any of that out of him. He was not that kind of fellow to brag on himself. But anyway, I want to tell you, and I know Jeannie, how difficult this is for you, and for your children, Kelly, for Matt, and all of you beautiful grandchildren. I know this is difficult. It seems so premature. It's like he just retired and is ready to enjoy his life, and yet his life has been cut off. I think of this passage, and we're asking God to teach us to number our days, so we may present to Him a heart of wisdom. I want to tell you that we recently were studying from John chapter 11, in the occasion of Jesus going to the home of Mary and Martha, their brother Lazarus just having passed. And one of the sisters comes to the Lord, and you can just see her, having seen the miracles that the Lord has done. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would have not died. And Jesus consoled her in this way, and I want to tell you, this really speaks volumes, I hope, to the family. He says, your brother will rise again. That body has given out, which is his shell, which was his home, his temporary home. But he will rise again, and his soul continues to be. The person that you've always known is still there, and there is the opportunity to go and be with him. Your father, yes, your husband, your grandfather, your brother, you have that opportunity to be together again, to be united. In Revelation chapter 14, blessed are they who die in the Lord, right? Why is that? Why would they be happy? Because there are better times for them. And we are all comforted for the fact that after such a valiant battle, I was here last week, and Dan, his sense of humor never escaped him. And I sat down in the chair, and he was half the man physically that he was before. And he said, he just looked at me and cracked a grin and said, "Well, do you have a black suit?" And that was the way he took this thing. He took it somewhat in stride. And I know he had difficult days, but he spent them here with the love of his life. I remember a phone call with Miss Jeannie just recently when she described this all as, "This is a man I fell in love with when we were 15 years old, and I've loved him every day since." Now that's special. That's the makings of a very, very fine and strong family. No wonder they are so dedicated to each other right now. I did ask Dan while I was there. Dan, you're okay, right? Oh yes. Dan has been setting his house in order for some time. Dan made sure long ago that he had both been crucified with Christ, that he had been buried with Christ in baptism, and that he had been raised up with Christ to walk in newness of life. Dan was a servant of the Lord. If there's a word I can think of that best describes the man that I knew for a very brief time, thought about this and thought about it, it's the word unassuming. Unassuming. Wow. To have gone from a house with no electricity and no running water, and to have made the accomplishments to earn a PhD in forensic science, to work with the Department of Justice, the capital of this nation, to have been somewhat of a celebrated forensic scientist, and did speeches and lectures. His wisdom, his knowledge, his science was sought out by lots of people. And yet, he was just unassuming. He came to church, he found him a place on one of the back rows and sat down, had a grin on his face, and enjoyed worshiping God in spirit and in truth. Think about, though, this assuming man working with the Department of Justice, and it kind of fits well with where we are, living in a country where we are presumed to be innocent. And yet I want to tell you that spiritually speaking, Dan Garner understood the Scriptures, that he was not assuming himself to be innocent of sin, like all of us. Romans 3:23, who have fallen short of the glory of God. Dan realized and confessed himself a sinner, and presented himself as a guilty person, just like all of us must do. He pled guilty, and he found forgiveness and mercy in the blood of Jesus Christ. It wasn't that he was just, he was righteous any more than any of us is. It's that he looked for that, and he found it through faith in Jesus Christ. Dan was made righteous by putting his faith in the Father of justice and mercy. That's the best way I can tell you to live a good life and to be able or ready to face death. And so, your brother will rise again. Your husband will rise again. Your granddaddy will rise again. And may God bless us and be blessed by the example of this great man. And just we will be praying for you and remembering you in the days and weeks ahead. We know this is going to be difficult. But Dan will be waiting for us on the other side of gathering at that river. Mike's going to lead us in another song now.
Father-in-law, 73. Sing the first thing and last verse. That's awesome. Tempted and tried, whereof faith we wonder, why it should bring us all the day long. Father of brothers living about us, let them others and wide. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When death has come and taken our loved ones, it leaves our homes so lonely and grim. Then do we wonder why others prosper, living so wicked year after year? Father alone will know all about it. Father alone will understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When we see Jesus coming in glory, when he comes from his home in the sky, then we shall meet him in that bright mansion. We'll understand it all by and by. Father alone will know all about it. Father alone will understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by.
I am Don Garner. I'm the youngest. There's 5 of us kids growing up. Christine, who passed away a few years ago. Wilma, who lives in Birmingham. Dick, Dan, and me. One thing Dick didn't tell you about Pigtail Alley. We had a galvanized bathtub. We took 1 bath a week. Being the youngest, I got my bath first. Dan was second, Dick, Wilma, Christine, and then Mom and Dad. That's the way we did it. Friday nights, we'd go to the grocery store. And we'd all go in the car, go to the grocery store, and Mom and Dad would go in to get the groceries, and within 10 minutes, Dick had everybody fighting in the car. The car was just rolling back and forth. People were knocking on the windows going in, settle down, settle down. And Mom and Dad would come out, and every Friday night, all of us got whippings. And Mom could use a dog leash really well. But it was a loving family. Mom and Dad were great people. We learned a lot. Christine was a teacher and got National Teacher of the Year. Went to Washington, D.C. Wilma became an educator, again got National Teacher of the Year, and actually had a building named after her. There in Huntsville. Dick moved about 9 different times, but got as high as you can get in the ATF without being politically appointed. I mean, that's amazing. And then Dan, so bright, PhD, I mean, I was impressed with all of them. I was last in my class in high school, and I was proud of it. But we've had a great friend. I love Dan. I love all my siblings. It's just a great way to grow up. I remember my dad, he was kind of a heavy man, and Mom would put him on a diet. And Dad would come home for lunch, and Mom would have him a salad to eat. Well, on the way back to work, Dad would stop at Isley's and get him a Klondike. Do y'all know what Klondikes are? Ice cream bars, whatever. Eat a Klondike before he went back and work. Well, I was wanting to use the car one day, and he said, well, clean it up, wash it. So I got it cleaned up, whatever, and I reached underneath the seat to clean underneath the seat and found 40 Klondike wrappers underneath the seat. So I took those and I went to Dan. I said, what do you think I ought to do? He said, take them to Dad. He said, you'll make it out okay. And I did. Dad said, shh, don't tell Mom. Don't tell Mom. And I said, well, can I use the car next weekend too? He said, sure, that's fine. But again, great. I remember the school bus would pick us up first, and then they'd come around and come on Jeannie's road and pick Jeannie up. And long about, 15, when they were 15, I was 13 at the time, I noticed Dan slipping into the seat next beside Jeannie. So being a young brother, I was given a bunch of stuff, and you know, they would hold hands and what, but from 15 on, they were a couple. And I fell in love with Jeannie, still am. She's a sweetheart. Great twosome. Made a great family, great kids, great grandkids. I love y'all. I'm going to miss Dan. Dan called me a week or so ago. He called Wilma, and he called Dick, and he called me, being the youngest, and called me last. And we cried a little bit and whatever. But I lost my wife back in November, and he told me, he said, I'm going to be talking to Peggy up there. That bothers me. I think some of the younger ones want to talk about their dad and granddad, so come on up. Thank you all for being here.
Well, thank you everybody for coming this afternoon and spending some time with us in memory of my father. I'm going to tell some stories this afternoon. I think they come naturally to me, so hopefully I can get through this. But I want to thank you all for being here today, and thank you for being here for my mom and dad since they've moved to New Bern. I couldn't think of a better location for them to have been and for my mom to be. It's just wonderful, so thank you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my dad, kind of where my uncles left off. So growing up, we did not, most of our vacations were actually visiting my grandparents. We'd go to Ohio or Tennessee or Florida and spend most of the time there. During the summer, we like to go to Chincoteague, Virginia and spend a long weekend at the beach. We always loved the water and spending time at the beach. Most of the time, we managed to embarrass my dad. He, unassuming but still very serious. There were, I think, several incidents at a restaurant called the Pony Pines where we definitely got giggling and laughing, and my dad was embarrassed. But how can you not laugh when somebody comes out of the restroom with toilet paper on their feet? Anyway, so he was not really that thrilled with that. But it was really good quality time with us. And I have vivid memories of, on the way back to the hotel, stopping at a convenience store for whatever reason and picking up a sailing magazine. And as you know, my dad was passionate and loved sailing, and he gave that love of sailing to me. And I can remember picking up that magazine, going back to the hotel and just reading it cover to cover and just really falling in love with it. That love that he gave me led me to a very successful career. More importantly, though, it set me on a journey to the University of New Orleans, where I met Tricia. We fell in love and began our journey together and have two wonderful boys, Nathan and Jake. And that leads me to my dad as a grandfather. And he was so excited to be a grandfather. He loved all his grandchildren, every one of them. And I remember when I graduated college, undergraduate, Mom and Dad came to New Orleans, a town they really enjoyed. Nathan was, I don't know, 3 or 4 months old. I was working, and so they decided, Mom, Dad, Trisha, and Nathan decided to go shopping in like the French Quarter. So Dad, being the grandfather that he was, put Nathan into a one of those backpacks for babies and carried him around as they shopped. At some point in the afternoon, Nathan and Dad had enough. And so they went back to the hotel and got comfortable in the hotel lobby bar. And I can imagine my dad there being doted on by the waitresses with his brand new grandson. And so they sat there for a little while. And when my mom and Trisha came to, after they were done shopping, my dad was soaked. I think it was probably from Nathan, but they were both very, very happy. And I can tell you that my dad is the only person that could get away with that. If that were me, I would not be here today. Trisha would have, yeah, that would not have gone well for me. And he enjoyed watching his grandchildren grow up and really enjoyed watching them mature. With Jake, he really enjoyed having deep conversations and would spend time here and in his office and talk about all sorts of different subjects, and he loved doing that. He really enjoyed those deep conversations with Jake. He enjoyed playing games with all his grandchildren, and I think he really tried to understand each grandchild as the individuals that they were and how unique and special each one of them are, and gave them unconditional love, and really enjoyed being a grandfather. So that's a little bit about my grandfather, or my dad. We're going to love and miss him tremendously. Thank you.
I have to switch glasses because I'm old enough I can't read with the sunglasses. When we've had time to prepare for today, if you can ever really prepare for something like today, and we've had lots of discussions and what we wanted for Dad and what he wanted and what we wanted the world to know about my dad. One of the things we did is we provided Dad's resume to the funeral home for his obituary, and it had all these lists of accomplishments, which have been very significant and have been great, and he's had huge success, and he is very unassuming. You wouldn't know half of the things that he's done, and I can remember at his retirement party hearing stories about my dad that I had no idea. He went to Kosovo and on a trip there for the DOJ, and he got stuck in a landmine, and they had to figure the way out, and just stories about my dad that he just didn't feel the need to always toot his own horn. I think I can remember him telling me numerous times growing up that his goal in life was to fly under the radar, that he grew one of 5 children. He needed to fly under the radar. He was going to let Dick be the one to get in trouble the most, and Don was the cutest, so he was going to get the most attention that way, and Dad was just going to fly under the radar, and that was a lot of his personality. I do think that his personal accomplishments are just as significant as his professional ones. My father taught me about unconditional love. I'm going to share with you a story that was very significant to me. My dad and I had a conversation a few years back. I was actually taken him to a doctor's appointment at Hopkins, and I was sharing how I felt about one of my most flamboyant failures in my life and how that made me feel. And my dad just sat there and he told me, "Kelly, you're not a failure." And he listed all these things that even though I saw myself as failing, he listed all these things that he saw as me succeeding in. he taught me, looking back on my life with him, he taught me that no matter what, he was an optimist, and no matter what I thought that I failed in or I made a mistake in, he was always there to point out 5 different ways that I had succeeded and that I had done well. And that no matter what, he was proud of me and he loved me, and that was never going to change and that was never going to diminish, regardless of how I felt about myself. My dad was the foundation of our family. He's what held us together, and he's going to be deeply missed. I have 49 years of memories that I was going to share about my dad, but it's getting warm, and I don't think that I can make it through it. So instead, I found a poem that I'd like to share. I really tried hard to find one by John Wayne that I thought would be appropriate, but I couldn't find any John Wayne poems that would be appropriate. So I found a poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson. It's called Crossing the Bar. Sunset and evening star, and one clear call from me, and may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea, but such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark, for though from out our bourne of time and place the flood may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar.
So I've been living here. I'm Jake, I'm my grandfather's grandson. I've been living here since February 14th, helping take care of him, helping spend time with him, just doing whatever I could to get more time with him. And, you know, when I first got here, he was pretty active, doing everything he could to stay active, doing exercises, walking around the house, just doing whatever he could. It felt normal at first. Over the past, few months, it got worse until, we are where we are today. But, in those 3-4 months that I've been here, I got to have a lot of good conversations with him. And a lot of them were about, as my dad said, passionate stuff or really just deep conversations. And, the last, true conversation I had with my grandfather, we talked about my mental health and how I'd always suffered from depression and anxiety. And one of the things he said to me is there's no amount of pain you can get through. There's no amount of pain that you can't get through. We love and believe in you. You're going to be okay, and you'll get through this. We love you so much, we can't lose you. And that's when he hugged me and I saw him cry for the first time ever. That was something that, is going to stay with me forever. And I can remember so many times when I was little, him just taking care of me and showing me what it means to show unconditional love. He was such a kind-hearted man, and I don't think there was ever a time he was truly mad. He'd get a little sassy. But, I'd do things and he'd get upset, but then he'd come back and we'd talk about it. And he was not upset. He'd just be kind of himself. He'd crack a joke and everything would be fine. Even on the last days he was here, he'd always make jokes or say things like nothing was really wrong, and that was what kept me going. The fact that no matter how crappy he felt, he was able to make jokes and get through it at the end of the day.
Hi, I'm Maddie, his granddaughter, Kelly's daughter. So I'm going to tell you guys a story. Give me a second, sorry. Alright. So My grandpa is one of the nicest people I've ever known. He's sweet and caring and wonderful to be around. I learned a lot while I was down here, just visiting him and being around him. One summer, he taught me one of the most best lessons I've ever learned. And so the day started out with my grandpa and I running errands. So we were going a whole bunch of places, getting stuff for my grandma, going to the grocery store, picking up medicine, and just a bunch of different things. So then Grandma called us or texted us and was like, I'm really hungry. Can you guys pick up fried chicken while you're out? And we were like, sure, Grandma. Do you want Popeyes? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. So we went to Popeyes and we got home and we had our lunch, and I remember there was a conversation about whether the chicken bones could go down the garbage disposal or not. And of course, Grandma won, and so she was like, I'm gonna put them down anyway. So we put them down the garbage disposal, and we were cleaning up dinner, and then a whole bunch of stuff started coming out of the garbage disposal. And we were trying to be so quiet because we knew that Grandpa would be upset if he found out that we had ruined his garbage disposal. So we're trying to like plunge everything back down the drain. And finally Grandma was like, we have to tell him. I was like, yeah, we probably do because we can't fix it. She goes, I'm not telling him, you have to go tell him. And I was like, why do I have to tell him? She was like, because he won't get up as upset with you. And I said, I mean, fair enough, okay. So we go back and we're not even halfway through the door and he goes, what did you two do? And we're like trying to ease him in and we're like, well, why don't you come take a look at the kitchen? And he's like, what did you two do? And we're like, just look. So he goes in the kitchen and he sees all this stuff coming out of the sink. And finally he fixed it, but on that day I learned, don't put chicken bones down the garbage disposal. It'll turn out really bad.
I am Faith, his youngest granddaughter, and so around 1:30. So this is 1:30 p.m. May 28th, 2020. Around 1 p.m. I went out on the pier and my dad came out with me and we just started talking, and around 20-30 minutes after we had gone out on the pier it started drizzling and we were like, let's just go inside. And not halfway down the pier it was just sunny again, and my dad said, do you want to head back or do you want to go? And I was like, we're already halfway down the pier, let's just go inside. And not but 2 minutes later, my Uncle Matt came out and said that Grandpa had passed. Me, my brother, and my dad went into Grandma and Grandpa's room, and everyone else was already there and were around him. And he looked so peaceful, and it looked like he was taking a nap, but I know he wasn't. Most of his family was there, which was really, really good, and I couldn't have to think that it was like movies where he would just start breathing again and everything would be fine, but it wasn't like that. And the night before, I gave him a kiss on the cheek and I said goodnight, and he said goodnight back to me, and those were the last words he ever said to me. And so I will always remember that. And my mom was really upset the other day, and my dad was comforting her and was saying how he loved her, and I said, you know, he never stopped loving you. He loves all of us so much, and he is looking down at us, and he is probably upset that we're upset because he's not in pain anymore. He's okay, and that's what I've been telling myself. So yeah, I'm not glad he's gone, but I'm glad he's not in pain anymore.
you'll see right here, granddaughter, this is her granddaddy's tie. And is that granddad's tie too? All of them. All of them. Very proud, yes, son-in-law as well. Son, oh, that's a beautiful tie. I ain't warm that one. But it's a beautiful family, and love their husband, their father, their grandfather, their father-in-law, their brothers. You all have just been excellent through this. That was touching, beautiful your words, and we want to support you in this. We're going to have a word of prayer, and then we're going to process those of you who would like to out to the graveside and finish it there. But don't get away too quickly, because we have one more bagpiper out there to do Amazing Grace that we need to say. Let's have a word of prayer, please. Our God in heaven, Lord, we thank you for this fine day we have to gather together here at the side of the river. At this place that was special to a very special man, continues to be special to him and his wonderful wife. God, we're here to pay our respects to Dan Garner, but much more than that, our brother in Christ, our husband, our father, our grandfather, our brother. And we just pray now that you be with this family. We have good thoughts about Dan and his preparation for this day and this time. God, we're impressed, all of us, as to how this family has thought about how to remember him on this day as he's asked that he wanted to be remembered at this place and in this way. God, we know that he is so much better off now, and he's no longer in pain. God, you are the God of all comfort. Know that you not only have made him comfortable, resting from his labors and from all the toil of dealing with his sickness, that's all gone now, Father. God, we also know that you have the power to comfort this family. So hold them up, Father, and keep them. Be with us, his family in Christ, his neighbors and friends. Help us to be supportive of this family in the days and weeks and months ahead. God, may they always remember these wonderful stories and good times that they've had with their special person, Dan Garner. God, we pray this all, and we can pray this with confidence and hope, because he died in hope and he died in Christ. We can pray this way. And in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.